Good.
All right.
And MK, you are looking live.
Excellent. Hello, Frog fans. Welcome to Postgame Beers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Malloy at Yell and K on Twitter, joined by our producer, Crazy Ray Cartwright, as well as the Sultan of Stat, Martin Guerrero. We are excited to bring you a fun episode tonight. Frogs are 4-0 after an exciting sweep of Florida Gulf Coast last weekend, and then a nail-biter last night over Texas State. But this weekend, TCU hosts the 20th ranked UCLA Bruins. When brainstorming, like, who should we have on the podcast this week to talk about the Bruins, the very first name, and I mean this genuinely, the first name we suggested was our guest tonight. He's a national writer for D1 Baseball. He specializes in a lot of the West Coast powers. This is Eric Sorenson at Stitch underscore head. Underscore,
yes.
Apologize for that. Underscore head, Stitch head. Eric, thank you for your time tonight, for joining us.
Well, I think the proper introduction would for me to say, cheers, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Let's go.
Cheers.
The Lupton Drinking Club. He's with us tonight.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, when you call yourself the Lupton Drinking Club, I suppose it was probably okay to drop my Bible and bring myself a brew. So there you go.
Why not both?
You can bring both. Yeah. At Lupton, we have all the things.
No, good to be on with you guys, man. I'm excited because I've always been a Frog fan. And of course, living out here in Smogland, I get to see a lot of the teams that you guys have coming up, including UCLA.
Absolutely.
So, this is cool. Thanks for having me on.
Eric, you mentioned last weekend you were taking a vacation. Did you have a good trip?
Oh yeah, we went skiing up at Park City. It's something I've done like for the past 6 or 7 years. Ski trip right before baseball, and then since Park City was kind of within driving distance, I actually drove from Park City down to Arizona to see some games on Friday and Saturday, opening day, and then the second day, and then drove back here for Sunday to see UCLA play. So yeah, it worked out really good. Good snow. In case you're wondering, it was good snow, and I didn't break a bone, so I'm okay.
That's awesome.
Did you pizza and French fry?
Yeah, I do the skiing. I'm kind of old school. I do the skiing thing just because snowboarding seems a lot like probably a lot like skateboarding. I did a lot of that as a kid, so I figured I could handle that. But I like the challenge of skiing a little bit better.
We are pumped to learn more about TCU's opponent this weekend, but I want to start here. D1 Baseball's 2024 bold predictions were released last week.
Yeah,
including picks for national championship and non-top 25 sleeper, that sort of thing. Many of your colleagues, I'm going to call them out, they were cowards. They picked teams like Arkansas, Wake Forest, Tennessee. I mean, come on. But you, Eric, your bold prediction for national champion was hold on, emphatic pause.
Yeah.
Dallas Baptist University?
Well, it was kind of a mistake. At first, because I got it confused with who's going to surprise, like what was it, non-top 25 team, and then I left it, and then I saw that I did that. I was like, oh wait, no, I meant to put Arkansas in there, and then I realized, no, hang on a second. Now, if this comes true, and Dallas Baptist pulls at Coastal Carolina, I will be the most showered upon person in all of college. My skills for prognostication will never be guessed again. So I kept it. I was like, screw it. I'll keep it. So, and I nothing against TCU. Of course, I love the Frogs, and I love Kirk Saarloos and TJ Bruce and those guys. But I really like Dan Hefner. He's a really cool guy. I like him a lot. So I hope he does have a great season and makes it to Omaha, just like you guys. Just putting it out there.
4-0, baby.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good start so far, right?
You know, when Schlossnagel went to A&M, obviously Saarloos was the favorite, and we were kind of expecting that move. But Hefner was definitely a name that popped up in terms of like the national search. So he's an excellent coach.
Yeah, I keep getting a little surprised that he's not being. I would like when Texas didn't pick him up, and TCU was another gig he might have gotten a consideration for. I'm still a little surprised, but he's got a really good thing going at Dallas Baptist, and it's not like college basketball or college football. You can win a title out of Dallas Baptist, or again, like a Fresno State or a Pepperdine or a Coastal Carolina. It can be done. So I think he's happy with where he's at, and he's pretty he's seems pretty locked in there.
Yeah, they're definitely a pain in our side, during the season because they always have a good team. I wish we would not get matched up with them in a regional or super. They would spread out, maybe go different directions because they've always been a good team, and we feel like we get matched up with them a lot.
Yeah, that happens. I mean, you see that a lot with, Miami and Florida always seem to be getting together. South Carolina, Clemson always kind of match together. Those things just happen. That's what you get when you get two good programs out of the Metroplex area.
Mm-hmm. All right. So in 2023, Bruins had, I guess, for their own expectations, probably a disappointing season. They went 28-24-1. They had a losing conference record, and they missed out on the regionals completely. I mean, everybody's expectation is Omaha, right? Everyone's going to Omaha. But realistically, where are the Bruins expecting to be at the end of the season?
Yeah, I last year was just, God, it was a crapshoot for them. It was just terrible. And I mean, everybody deals with injuries and attrition and stuff like that, but they really got put up against it with the injury bug. And John Savage, it's never one to mince words. He's never one to also make excuses. He goes, I'm not going to say people don't have injury problems, but ours were ridiculous last year, and it kind of showed. I think they're definitely NCAA tournament or bust. I'm not going to say Omaha or bust necessarily, but I think the one thing about them is that 2 of the last 3 years, they've had the number 1 recruiting class in the country. Didn't work out for them last year just because so many things happened. And a lot of guys, actually, they did have some problems with the transfer portal as well, but they got another great recruiting class this year, and they got so much depth, I think, this year. And a lot of good arms, that are really talented. I think it's NCAA tournament for sure. Maybe Omaha. I think Omaha's on the table, but definitely NCAA tournament or bust. If they don't make it this year, then something really went sideways for them.
Yeah, hasn't that been kind of the theme for UCLA these last couple of years? It seems like they're a feeder program for SEC schools.
Jeez, it befuddles me, especially for the pitchers that end up going to LSU. It seems like Thatcher Hurd and Gage Jump the last 2 years. Those are like elite pitchers that left for one reason or another to UCLA. It's not like they have a bad culture there or anything. It's not like a lot of kids are jumping ship, but they have had some guys that went down out to the SEC. But John's such a great recruiter. I mean, he's really good at what he does. If he can sell a place like UCLA to get a number 1 class, I mean, that's pretty good because they don't have the facilities that an LSU or Mississippi State or even a Florida might have. But man, he can really put them on the map when it comes to recruiting. So that he's done an exemplary job at that.
Does that have to do with NIL? Like, how's their NIL? That's kind of the big thing around college baseball these days. How's their investment into their program?
I'm not certain what their NIL is like. I know it's probably not what LSU gets because they have a lot of crazy fans that'll give their life savings to that damn program. But I don't know exactly what it is. They have put a lot of money into the facilities there, into assistant coach. Bryant Ward gets paid well, and David Berg is a former national champion pitcher for them. So they got good coaching there. They got a good facility. I won't put it great, but a good facility. The weather's not bad, of course. Yeah, that's part of it. But the other thing is they've built up a culture where they emphasize doing everything the right way. And there's a lot of times I'll talk to scouts once in a while and they'll say, John Savage will, he might start recruiting a guy that's a 5-star, if you want to use a football term, a 5-star talent. But if they got any kind of attitude problems, he won't recruit them anymore. He'll let them go. He goes after certain people, and they have to have a certain type of work ethic and team unity type of thing for him to take them on. So that's it. I can't answer how much money these people get, or if they, if they're given a Corvette when they get to campus. Probably not, because it costs so much to park around there. But anyway. They just do it the right way. John's got a system, and he's stuck with it, and he's done very well with it. Now it needs to show up better on the field, as you guys were just pointing out. The last few years haven't been very good. Their 2019 team was really good, number 1 team in the country, but The last few years have been a little bit of a disappointment. I think this year they're really looking to make to salvage and make it a good year.
Does everyone get a golden Tesla instead of a Corvette?
Yeah, that's true. Probably an electric car. That's not a bad way to put it. Yeah, good point.
Hey, Eric, do you think the move to the Big Ten is going to hurt or help a team like UCLA?
I can't imagine it'll help a lot. I think it got a little bit better when Oregon and Washington were included in that too. And I think the Big Ten has done a great job the last, let's say, probably 10 or 15 years of really amping up their programs there. Everybody's built a new facility or revamped an old facility. And I think that's a good thing about Big Ten baseball has kind of upped the ante the last few years. And I think UCLA, USC, Oregon and Washington, I think they'll add to it. I can't say it's going to be better. You're probably better playing Arizona State, Stanford, Cal's up on the rise a little bit now, Oregon State. You're better playing those teams to get your RPI better. So that's kind of going to be a thing against it. But yeah, it's not going to get better for them. I think they're going to make the conference better. That's for sure.
So, I guess a big problem is, the season starts in February. And I think that's kind of what hurts the Big Ten a lot. Do you see, in the future, teams going down to LA or something and having a big tournament, like a preseason thing, like they do in Arizona every year?
Yeah, that's true. Well, they do have the Dodgertown Classic, which has involved some Big Ten teams over the years. Michigan comes to mind a couple of years ago. But yeah, and I think, Martin, the other thing you're going to get is a lot of scheduling where it's going to be, it seems weird to say, okay, Illinois and UCLA, a conference weekend. It's like, really? Do we really have to do this? But they're going to play a lot of games. USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington are probably going to be busier at home early in the season, in the Big Ten season, I should say, than the other teams will be. But yeah, just as off a side note, it's a real level of depression for me that the Pac-12 is going away. I mean, I know there's probably fans out there in the SEC that are cheering it. Oh, they don't get any fans to go to their games anyway. Well, that's BS. But still, to me, it's just depressing. And as Chip Kelly said the other day, Arizona, for the UCLA softball team, they should be playing Arizona. They should be playing Arizona State. They shouldn't be playing Rutgers or Maryland, for Christ's sake. So that's how it is, though. That's the world we're in because football controls everything.
Yeah,
Sorry,
happy to see Pac-12 football. I'm happy to see Pac-12 football to go away. Sad to see Pac-12 baseball go away.
Yeah, kind of. But although the Pac-12 had a really good year, it's really a shame they had such a good year in football their last season. They had to do it. But yeah, it's all been leadership. It's not the football players' fault. It's not the softball or baseball players' fault. It's just poor leadership in the conference for years now.
But it'll be fun to see those Stanford, Wake Forest, Florida State matches.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I mean that's one thing. You kind of you're going to get a lot of teams out there that you haven't seen in a long time or haven't seen before, with a Florida State or a Georgia Tech or a Miami visiting Stanford. It just seems weird calling it a conference game. It just, I don't like it, but that's where we're stuck.
All right. So, Eric, last weekend, you scouted the Bruins in person on Sunday. They swept Gonzaga, which we imagine to be a pretty decent team. Time will tell on that. Before we talk about results on the field, I feel like UCLA could fill out the college baseball all-name team by themselves with guys like Cash Duggar, Rock Chalowski, Deuce Gorson, just an A++ team, names all around.
Yeah, they get some strange West Coast parents calling their kids weird names. I guess that's one way to look at it. But yeah, Mulavai Levu is another one. I think that I was just checking my notes here. But yeah, no, they've got some pretty good all-name team guys out there, good talented guys as well.
So we mentioned a couple of these guys, some freshman starters on this team, Rock and Cash Duggar. Were these guys projected to have success this immediately? Is this kind of an expectation for the team?
Yeah, I don't know about Cash Duggar. He was a little bit less ballyhooed, but John, when I talked to him for the fall report, was really big on him. He was really hyped on Cash Duggar as taken over at catcher for Darius Perry, who had been in the program for a long time. But Rock Chalowski was kind of like Trent Caraway at Oregon State. they're both like top 10 projected talented freshmen, I should say, coming into this season. And I saw both of them play down at the area code. They have this area code games down in Long Beach, which is kind of like a high school all-star tournament for a week every August. That's held in Long Beach, out at Long Beach State. But Chalosky you could just see from the minute he's out there, you could see that he's a pro's pro. And Duggar is also a kid that was, again, not as highly regarded, but still a top 400 talent coming into the season, according to our list by Dave Seifert. And there's a number of guys that aren't starters. I'm going to look Cameron Kim and Roman Martin. Roman Martin was like the number 6 or 7 shortstop in the country behind Chalosky. These are guys that are all going to be able to get some playing time, but not as much. But yeah, they've got a freshman class that really added to their depth for this year, which they needed because they had such little depth last year. And their pitching core got a couple of new arms as well that are going to be really good in the years ahead.
Let's talk about pitching for a second. So they had a lot of success against the Zags on the mound. On Friday, they gave up the most runs. It was 4 runs on 5 hits. But on Saturday, 3, and Sunday they held them scoreless, which is kind of amazing considering it. I don't know if there's a starter for Sunday, but they threw out 6 different arms. So just rotating through to see figure it out. Are we expecting to see a similar rotation for the weekend? They had Luke Jewett on Friday. They had Finn McElroy on Saturday, and like I said, a plethora of guys on Sunday. Yeah. Is that their philosophy, or should we expect something different on Lupton?
Here's a quick little story for you guys. I was talking to John Savage after the game with a couple of other writers, and I just asked him it was kind of an innocent question. I was just like, hey, are you going to keep your? Well, first he was telling me how much, because I was asking about the TCU series and how much TJ Bruce used to be his assistant coach, and Kirk Saarloos was a pitcher when he was the Team USA coach in 2000. So they've gone, when he was at Fullerton, so they've gone way back with these guys. He goes, I like these guys a lot. I consider these guys friends, and yada yada. And I said, hey, by the way, Coach, are you going to keep your rotation the same as you did this weekend? And he goes, well, look, I'm friends with those guys, but I'm not that big of friends. I'm not going to tell you what my rotation is going to be going into this weekend. Sorry, it might get changed up. So I'm not sure if it's going to be those. More than likely, I can't imagine that he's not going to go back to Jewett, who's a great talent, Finn McElroy, who really took a big jump after last year, and Michael Barnett. I can't imagine he's going to change that up as well as they did this past weekend. But one thing about John Savage, and your fans will hate this. He'll make a change. He'll make a change after a few batters as it gets to the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, especially early in the season where not going to have somebody go a full game. He'll make changes depending on if the guy's a righty or lefty, or he'll make make that slow walk out to the mound a lot. So yeah, look for a lot of pitchers for UCLA this week. And again, it kind of goes back to a little bit about their depth. They've got so many guys they can throw out there. It's not like they have to rely on just 5 or 6 guys. So that's good for them. But I would imagine the rotation's still going to be the same with Jewett, McElroy, and Barnett as the Sunday guy. He's not a big guy that's going to he's a big dude, but he's not going to do a lot of like 10 or 12 strikeouts a game. He's mostly going to get a bunch of ground outs and have a low pitch count. So that's kind of what to look forward to from their rotation. I would imagine it would be about the same.
We're kind of used to a lot of pitching changes. We see that a lot during midweek games. Teams that come into Lupton or whatever, it seems they're rolling out a different bullpen piece every inning.
Yeah,
so it's par for the course.
Those things happen, especially early in the year. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly true. Whenever
you look at this TCU team, do you kind of think of it as a West Coast team, given 95% of its coaching staff hails from that Southern California area?
I guess that's kind of true. I didn't think about that, but you're right. With Dave Snow added this year, not Dave Snow, I'm sorry, Dave Lawn added this year to the staff, and he's been a long-time West Coast guy. Yeah, you're kind of right. I didn't really think of it that way. So I don't assume that TCU is kind of a West Coast team over the years that I've seen them, but the coaching staff sure is. I can put it that way. The coaching staff sure is probably more apt to do more surfing than any coaching staff that TCU has had in the past few years.
Well, Kirk's definitely got the hair for surfing. I don't know how good he actually is. His brother keeps pretty good on the surfboard.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of him, and TJ Bruce both have beautiful hair, and it just makes me sick. So you guys know how I roll with my haircut. So there you
I think that's why Kendall hates TCU.
go. Probably so. Yeah, that, and he's got that Texas A&M thing in him too. So
There's that little thing.
yeah, of course.
Martin, where you at?
How do you pull up the little questions in the comments? I want to bring up Jacob's question. I think it's pretty good.
So our friend Jacob Sailors, a friend of the podcast, he asked, what can we take away from the Gonzaga series? Is the pitching top tier, or the Gonzaga bats a little quiet?
Yeah, I think Gonzaga's got a pretty good team. It's not their, 2021 where they won the West Coast Conference and went to the NCAA tournament. I think they're kind of rebuilding after kind of a down year, transition year, you could call it, for them last year. But Mark Machtolf does a great job with them. I think Gonzaga is going to be a pretty good team this year. I'm not. That's why it was kind of encouraging from a UCLA standpoint to see them win all 3 games. I would have guessed they wouldn't have. It was been a 2-1 probably split. I think Gonzaga is going to be a pretty good team. I'm kind of going on history with them more than anything, because Mark Machtolf has just done such a great job of being now they've got 2 things against them. They're a snow belt team, and they're kind of geographically isolated, which always hurts the RPI for all those teams like them and, like Nevada or Fresno State or Minnesota. A lot of these teams are just isolated. They can't have, like in the Southeast, they can't have these good teams come in and play midweek games and help their RPI. But I would guess that this was a pretty good Gonzaga team, probably going to contend in the West Coast Conference this year. So take that however which way you want to take it. I think the West Coast Conference has a handful of really good teams this year.
Also, could you talk a little bit about Deuce Gorson? Looks like, A+ name. He also wears number 2, and he plays second base.
Yeah, I think what was it, the last few years? Yeah, he's back. He's at number 2 now. I think the last few years he's worn number 3, which didn't make sense.
Does he bat second in the lineup?
Because of his name, I don't know. He's great. Now he's an All-American candidate. Him and Cody Schreier. Schreier is the one that got hurt like midway through the season last year, and that really threw UCLA's season kind of into the tumbler. But those 2 guys, probably 2 of the best middle infielders you'll see. Gorson, actually, what does he have? 2 home runs already. I saw him park one the other day in that Sunday game against Gonzaga. Played for both of them played Team USA this past summer, so their talent level's just off the charts. So I think that's going to be those are going to be 2 guys that you really want to keep an eye on. They're kind of like Braden Taylor last year. Just every time they go up, they're dangerous. They're a lot like
a superstar.
Yeah, I mean they got that kind of pedigree to them, and I think that they're both going to be they both have a chance to be all first team All-Americans just because of their talent level.
We've talked a lot about starting pitching. What's their bullpen like?
Oh, geez, I could read off all these names, but they've got. Well, here's one thing I will say: they've got just about everybody back from their bullpen last year, including a great name. It sounds like somebody. Well, you guys are too young to appreciate the TV show Happy Days, but Cody Del Vecchio is.
Hey.
Yeah. Cody Del Vecchio is a guy that I think he had the most saves last year. He's back again this year, but they picked up a guy. The transfer portal wasn't all just one-way street out of Westwood. They did pick up a guy, Rashad Ruff.
I was going to ask him about him because we've got our guy Ben Abelt, but this guy seems kind of like a Ben Abelt type of guy coming in and saving the game.
Yeah, he was all MEAC relief pitcher of the year last year at Coppin State, and he transferred in, and they've used him in the Gonzaga series. They used him twice. And I don't think he gave up a hit in either one of them. But, yeah, he's really good. I think those are going to be the 2 stud guys that come out of the bullpen. But, again, it's going to be a parade of pitchers. Again, you might see, especially depending on what the game situation is like, you might see 8 or 9 different pitchers this weekend alone in those 3 games.
But sometimes that's fine because we want to get to the next guy in the bullpen. But every now and then you'll find a guy like the 4th guy in, then they just shut the bats down. So,
yeah,
it's a dangerous thing to ask for,
Yeah, somebody's going to step up and be the guy that's just going to throw a fire blanket on any kind of flame you guys get.
So by the end of the Florida Gulf Coast series, every Frog fan knew Ian Farrow's name because he was just dominating He hit 3 bombs, I want to say, over the weekend. And, a couple guys knew him coming in, but after that, everybody knew him. Who's the guy for UCLA after this weekend that we will know who that is?
I'm going to go with Rock Schalowski, the freshman kid. They got him at third base now. He's a shortstop, natural shortstop. He'll take over for Schreier after he leaves next year. Schalowski's a kid that's he hits everything hard. I think you guys will find out early, and he swings aggressive early in the count a lot of times too. I think he's going to be the guy that you guys might not heard much of before, but once he gets through, you're going to be like, okay, that guy's a stud, and he's going to be there another 2 years. Hopefully we don't schedule UCLA in the next 2 years. Another guy probably to watch for is another freshman. Now, this is a guy that started, he was leadoff hitter as a freshman in the first game all 3 games against Gonzaga. His name is Dean West, and I think he was left field actually in the series. And I asked John about him in the fall for our fall report on UCLA, and he said Dean is one of these guys that, again, he was an area code games guy, kind of well known, but not like Rock Schalowski or Roman Martin. He was kind of a little bit of tier or 2 below them. But John said he came to campus, and the first thing we noticed is he's got like elite bat skills for a freshman to come in, and he's probably going to hit leadoff for us, and he's probably going to lead us in walks, which, as a freshman, you don't usually expect that. And he's got fleet feet too. He can steal a lot of bases. In fact, actually checking to see if he stole any this weekend. No, just 1 for 1. But he's a guy that's going to, as a leadoff hitter, I think that's another name you probably should watch for as a freshman that came to campus, just like, baseball ready, D1 baseball ready as he comes to campus for the first time.
It sounds kind of like what TCU has in Chase Brunson.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Okay. Yeah, no, I don't have him up there, but yeah, it's just one of those guys
similar story, relatively, he was drafted in the 18th round, right? Was committed to Loyola Marymount. Their coaching staff leaves.
Yeah.
And then so he decommits and comes to TCU and walks in as a day 1 starter in center field.
Yeah, that's amazing that can happen. I'm sure I'm not sure he made a mistake by going to TCU, but the coach for LMU likes to drink whiskey, so I think he might have made a little mistake by not going with Dom on that one. But no, that's you always like hearing stories like that from especially the fan base loves a new freshman. It's like the backup quarterback that comes in as a freshman and just lights it up. They love that story.
That's what made TCU so fun last year. They had all those super freshmen.
That's right. Yep.
As a self-declared whiskey lover, I'm surprised you're hating on another guy like that.
I don't mean to. Actually, Kirk Sarlos told me that I should. He's a big fan of TX whiskey, which is something made there. I'm not sure if it's in Fort Worth, but it's somewhere there in Texas, and that's why it's called TX whiskey. But he turned me on to that, so I've always got a soft spot in my heart for Kirk Sarlos.
You probably can't get TX all the way out west there.
I haven't seen it before, but the good news is I'm going to Texas for the next 9 or 10 days, so I'll be able to enjoy some while I'm there.
We'll talk about that in a little bit. I want to ask about your trip, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So head coach John Savage, you mentioned him earlier. He's over UCLA. He has a history with Kirk and TJ Bruce. TJ was with the Bruins when they won their national championship. John was the pitching coach for Sarlos at Fullerton. I mean, a lot of stuff going on here. And I imagine at this point, this is normal for college baseball, where we have people that interact with each other, that coach each other. And that's a normal thing. But for us, it's kind of fun because it's like, oh, we don't experience this all the time with, teams down the street. But does that affect any decisions that are made during a game, right? They have not only a relationship friend to friend, but history. Would that affect anything that they do, game time decisions, because of the person that they know across the, in the other dugout?
Yeah, if I could put myself into John Savage's brain for a minute, I figure it probably does, because he knows the kind of defenses that TJ Bruce calls out and the kind of offense that TCU is going to have probably. But I can't imagine it's going to make a big difference. But But it is an interesting side note that these coaches all know each other for all these years and known each other for a long time. I think that's kind of a cool thing about this rival. Now that I think about it, damn, too bad TCU didn't come into the Pac-12. But anyway, no, but
they almost did. They almost did.
I know. I don't think it makes a big difference, but it does make a good side story to it. That's for sure. I'll give you that much on it.
All right. So, any history that you know of between these guys that would be relevant for us to yell at John, while we're sitting there in the front row, like, because we will literally be there in the first or second row of all these games, and so if there's any trash talk that you can share with us right now, that would be helpful during the games.
As far as I know, John doesn't have any like DUIs or anything like that, or
shoot.
run-ins with the cops. Bryant Ward, the assistant, I don't think he does either. The only thing I think about, there's nothing that I could come up with on this one. Like, hey, yeah, you with the full head of hair. Yeah, you look real good there with your full head of hair. That's probably it. But no, I think John and Kirk are more concerned with their pitching staffs and whatnot to have anything thrown at them. Put it this way, I will say this. If you guys do want to trash talk, these are really, and I don't say this about every coach because there's a lot of coaches out there that are kind of assholes and you don't want to say it. But John and Kirk, I just like those guys a lot. They've always been really good with me over the years that I've been covering college baseball. So I really like, these are really good people, I think. So trash talk at your own peril. These are good people. That's what I'll say.
Do you know if they like their steaks well done?
That I can't tell you either. No, I can't say one way or another. They better not like it well done. I'm a Nebraska kid. Obviously, you see from the Creighton shirt. I'm a Nebraska kid, so they better not like it. They better like it medium rare at best. That's probably what I'll say. By the way, I have a question. Can I ask a question for you guys?
That was my last question. Was what questions do you have? So let's get it started now. Yeah.
Well, the first thing I'd want to ask about is what is your concern? I mean, I'm just looking at stat sheets and scores, obviously. What is your concern with TCU's pitching, which I can't believe they gave up so many runs. This is a Kirk Saarloos coach team. They gave up so many runs to what I think kind of like Gonzaga. I think Florida Gulf Coast will probably be a pretty good team. But yeah, they gave us so many runs. What do you guys say about the pitching staff for TCU with a team like UCLA coming to town now?
Yeah, I think part of it, or actually a lot of it, was the defense kind of not falling apart, but sometimes actually falling apart. Like against Texas State midweek, it was kind of crazy. It was like 5-0 or 5-1 to start the inning, and it was just they could not get out of the inning.
Kind of wheels fell off type of thing, I guess.
Yeah. There was that ball dropped by Brunson. It would have been the third out of the inning. There was a play at the plate where Ferber from Texas State would have been out by a mile, but and it's not that we have a bad defense. It's our guys who are great at defense. Just like it's like 50-50 balls, or none of them are going our way.
Yeah, that happens early in the season, but I was just still surprised at the run totals, I guess, that UC put up.
Yeah, and then to have that happen against teams like Florida Gulf Coast and Texas State, who are really good at hitting the ball, it's like you can't give them extra opportunities. And they're like Zach Morris actually pitched pretty well on Sunday, but there's like a couple innings where he had to get 5-6 outs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That'll kill you, especially against a good team, like you were saying. Okay. Just wanted to get your feelings. Didn't know if you guys were pressing panic buttons yet on something like that. Too early to do that, I would assume.
We're not like the SEC fan base and want to fire a coach after one weekend.
Put a for sale sign in their yard.
I need more data points.
Good. You guys are reasonable. I like that.
Well, we talk about the positives and we talk about the concerns, and pitching was obviously a concern, right? That we brought that up. But at the same time, like Martin said, when you're having to get all these extra outs, it's like, well, who is actually to blame here? And one of the questions I brought up on our podcast was like, was Kirk more upset at the pitching or was he more upset at the defense? And the response from the guys was probably the defense, it wasn't necessarily the pitching, but he had to pull guys earlier than he wanted to. So he looked really pissed off, and he's walking out to the mound.
And you got to figure with guys like Klecker and a Bell, I was hoping it wasn't going to be the pitcher's fault necessarily because they got so much talent. You guys got so much talent on the mound. It would have been surprising. It will be surprising me to see if this kind of continues. Put it that way.
Correct.
Yeah, I think I was more. I'm never really worried about pitching because, ever since Kirk's been here, we've had like multiple guys go in the draft every year, and it's usually guys who we didn't even think of, at the beginning of the season, and I think it's with TCU with Kirk Charles, it's always we have the arms, but which ones is it going to be, and through the season we kind of just had to figure out the roles.
Yeah. Well, that just tells you right there, he's a good developer of talent. So you guys should give him a raise and keep him as coach there. So Fullerton doesn't pluck him at one point, but no, he's good at that kind of thing. I respect the program that he's built there. And I think I'm really a big fan of his.
Is that encouraging whenever you look at a team that's supposed to be elite and see that, okay, they didn't play great baseball but they still found a way to sweep a series?
Yeah. And again, against a team that I think will be pretty good. I think we're all kind of thinking Florida Gulf Coast will be a pretty good team, a good mid-major. Gonzaga the same way with UCLA beating them. So yeah, it's comforting to have that, in your back pocket, knowing that TCU can put up some runs, even without Taylor this year. They can put up runs and still, and still put up some numbers that are going to help them win games. So let's just hope, as Martin pointed out, let's just hope the defense gets a little bit better. I guess that was something I didn't know about. Let's hope that gets a little bit better, and usually it will for teams that have talent that are early in the season. They'll have some shaky stuff.
The scoring has been generous, so it doesn't reflect on the stat sheet.
Oh, okay. All right, gotcha. That's good to know. All right.
Eric, I'm going to give you a 30-second break. We're going to take a quick break and grab a drink of beer, and we'll do a couple sponsor ads right now. But Postgame Beers brought to you by a couple sponsors tonight. We want to thank you guys for the Finnish Legend, the long drink. I've got one in my hand right now. It is it's a refreshing, delicious Legend of 1952. Ray's got the peach in his hand. Guys, these things are amazing. And if you're looking for something that's refreshing, that's not too heavy, grab a long drink because it's awesome. Second, Hell's Half Acre. We've been with Hell's Half Acre since the beginning of the season. If you go to hellshalfacresg.com/Lupton Drinking Club, you can buy a ton of merch for the season, tons of hoodies, Q-zips, hats. I've got one on right now, and we really appreciate Hell's Half Acre. So thank you guys to our sponsors for that.
Cool.
All right, moving on. So we talked a lot about UCLA. One thing that I want to look to the future about, Eric, and I think about some of these teams, is that next week the Frogs are actually starting this weekend, we're in the Pac-12 realm. Well, that's all we're playing for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So in the midweek next week, we got Washington State for a game on Tuesday night, and then we're hosting Arizona. Very interesting midweek matchups. I guess without going into full program breakdowns, right? That's a lot of stuff. But is there anything we can expect from the Cougars or the Bearcats, like things that we can, the fans can look out for next week?
Yeah, I don't know much on Washington State yet, although Nathan Choate, the head coach, he was at LMU last year, and LMU is like a mile from my house. And so I got to cover him a couple of times and talk to him, and he's a good coach. Took advantage of having a great season last year, winning the West Coast Conference and went up to Washington State. I don't know a lot about them yet, that's for sure. But I will say, as far as you were asking about Arizona, for them to go 2-1 against Northeastern and to put up, I'm doing my math here, 23 runs in 3 games. Northeastern's got a really good pitching staff. Granted, they haven't probably practiced outside at all, but Northeastern's got really good pitching. And they are a ranked team, so that was impressive for them to go 2-1 against those guys. I think Arizona was a big question mark. In fact, Mike Rooney was telling me that he didn't. This was going to be a transition year for them. He didn't think that they were even going to have a winning record or have any shot in the NCAA tournament. They kind of come out on fire. They came out, and right now, if I'm looking at the stat sheet, they're hitting 384 as a team. That's including 3 games against Northeastern. So I think Arizona is going to bring some bats with them. They always kind of do. They got a pretty hitter-friendly park as well. But, yeah, that's going to be. I mean, Arizona's a good team. I think if TCU gets a win against them, it'll help their RPI because I think Arizona might be a little bit better than people are thinking. But that's probably as good of a breakdown as I can give on those teams, unfortunately.
That's fine. So the next weekend after that, they play USC 2 times.
Yep.
They play Arizona State. So I think we expected both teams to be better. USC had a rough weekend and rough in terms of they made the Stitch Head ouch list for the week, which that's one of my favorite articles of the week. Assuming that my frogs don't make the ouch list, right? So
I don't discriminate. I don't discriminate. If you
know
like crap, you will get on it.
And we've been on it. We were on it last year. The frogs were on it last year in the middle of the season. Right. Ouch list is on D1 baseball. Eric posts this every week about top 5 to 7 teams that really struggled. I love the first sentence is like, have you experienced pain or misery or all these things? And unfortunately, USC went 0-3. They lost to BYU. They lost to Grand Canyon. They lost to Ohio State. What is going on in LA?
It's a weird thing because USC on paper was going to be pretty good this year. Well, there's a lot to discuss, but I'll try to make it short. But they have all 3 returning weekend starters coming back. They have, I think, 5 or 6 returning starters in the field. And I did the fall report on them. Coach Stankiewicz was, he was pretty high on his team. And yeah, for them to lose 8-1 and 8-1 to both BYU and Grand Canyon was pretty surprising. To go 0-3 was pretty bad. The other side of the coin with USC is, I don't know if you guys knew about it, but their baseball stadium got raised this past offseason. They're building more. They're adding on to their football facilities and moving their baseball stadium like 50 yards toward the west. So they're rebuilding their baseball stadium. So for the next 2 years, they're actually going to play every game on the road. They're playing their home games at LMU, not far from here, but also down in Irvine at UC Irvine and at a public park down there called Great Park, which is it's a brand new facility, which is really cool. Not a lot of seats, but decent. So they're playing all road games and they're practicing every day at El Camino College, which is like 7 or 8 miles away. So they've got some things that are going on there that, kind of situation they can't avoid. This is something that they're just going to have to deal with. And I think it has something to do with the way they play. I really do. I wasn't expecting them to get skunked so bad by BYU and Grand Canyon. And even Ohio State, they lost 5-2. They only scored 4 runs all weekend. So I don't know what to expect from them. If you would have told me all things being equal going into the season, yeah, they had, they had 33, 34 wins last year. They finished 4th in the Pac-12. I would have guessed they would probably be challenging or, be a challenger for the Pac-12 title this year. I don't know if that's going to happen now just because of these mitigating circumstances that they're having to deal with. I think it's unfair. I think Andy Stankiewicz is a good coach. He won at Grand Canyon. And if you can win there, I mean, that's showing me something. You can go to a couple NCAA tournaments right from Grand Canyon University. So yeah, I don't know if things are going to change in the next week or 2 before you guys play them. I just know that they're talented enough to beat anybody just about. But I just think that they've got some things on that they have to deal with that other teams don't have to, and that really does kind of hurt them.
So the playing at a public park, I mean, that sounds kind of odd, but I mean, are they gonna charge admission or
all their games are free? All their games are free, whether they're at LMU, at UC Irvine, or at the public park at what they call Great Park down in Irvine. All of them are free, and they probably should be, because if they're going to be this crappy of a team, they probably shouldn't charge anything. But man, I feel kind of bad for Coach Stankiewicz and them if that's kind of how it's going to be this year.
Yeah, what do the treadmills look like at the local rec center so they can, stay fresh on their toes?
I can't help you. I don't know how that's going to – all I know is they got a long drive to go to practice every day at El Camino College. So that's the biggest bummer for them.
Man, that does have to be a whipping. You sit in class all day and then you have to drive 30 minutes to go to practice.
In LA traffic.
Yeah.
You're just going down on country road. That's for sure. So yeah, you're having to put your shoulder pads on to get into your car and just start bashing through traffic. That's a drag. So yeah, I think it's a big thing on them this year. It's a big weight on their shoulders.
Okay, so according to D1, you have now written over 900 articles. I don't know if you know that.
Jesus, no.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd figure I'd get better at it if I had that much experience.
Is there a story, maybe a person, something you think about, maybe something you're most proud of? Like, hey, that was a cool thing I wrote about.
I'm just at this point, I'm just glad they actually post my crap most of the time. But no, there's one article that I was really happy about. It was an article that came out during the regionals, before the regionals last year. I'll be brief with it because I don't want to bore you with a long story that has nothing to do with TCU baseball. But back in 1992, Virginia Commonwealth got sent to Texas. This was back in the six team regional days. They got sent to Austin to play in the regionals down there. They didn't expect to get a bid. The coach Tony Guzzo sent all his players. Said, "Hey, we had a great season." They won the regular season championship in their conference, which was called the Metro at the time. Great season. You guys turn in your gear. We're going, we'll see you. Some of you guys go on to pro ball. We'll see some of you guys next fall. Well, then they get a bid. They get a bid to the NCAA tournament. They have guys. They had a guy on the beach in Myrtle Beach. They had guys, a guy that lived in New York City that had already gone home. They had one guy who went on a fishing trip, never got this was before cell phones, never found out that they were in the NCAA regionals. It was a pitcher, and he was on a fishing trip for 5 days, didn't know about the whole regionals, nothing. So my favorite story was probably that one, talking to Coach Tony Guzzo, who's now an assistant at Old Dominion, kind of a retired assistant. He's an older gentleman now, but he was replaying that whole story of the team having to call these guys. Again, this is before cell phones, having to call people up. Players are seeing it in newspapers. Hey, we got a bid to the regionals. We didn't think we were going to get that. So that recapping that it was 30 years. Last year was the 30-year anniversary of it. And that was, or the year before, I should say, was the 30-year anniversary of it. So that was probably my favorite article that I have, other than the weekly ouch list where I get to crap on teams. That was probably my favorite article, was that Virginia Commonwealth article from 1992.
Tracking those players down reminds me of the movie Armageddon, when they were trying to find all the oil drillers to send them to NASA.
That's right. It was kind of like that. And an interesting side note is, and this is, again, probably before any of you guys were born, I actually went to that regional because at the time I lived in Dallas and Creighton was playing. Creighton got a bid down to that regional. So I actually got to see some of that regional happen, at least the few days until Creighton got eliminated. Then I left. But that Virginia Commonwealth team ended up making, not only as a 6th seed, they ended up making it to the championship round of the regional and extending Texas to a second game. Almost went to Omaha, and this was a team that they thought didn't even get a bid. So kind of an interesting story.
Speaking of Creighton, did you have a celebration beer last night? Big win for your Blue Jays.
Now, let me tell you, let me explain something to you, Ray. I had about 6 celebration beers.
Yeah,
that's me Sunday night.
Because as an old Creighton fan, and I went to their basketball camp as a kid a couple of years, I was really happy about that. So that's why, if you thought I wasn't going to represent Creighton today on your show, you're sadly mistaken. Of course I was going to. Yeah, I was really happy about that, though. It's kind of came out of left field, and they won by 20, which I wouldn't have guessed.
They just did. It wasn't like it was a buzzer beater. They smoked them.
Yeah, that was probably as good as they could play. I hope they bottle some of that for the NCAA tournament this year.
Your writing, Eric, is fantastic, but we are the Lupton Drinking Club. So
yes,
I'm always entertained by the pics showing a half a beer in the stadium that you're currently, scouting.
That's right.
So those are my favorite posts of yours. Is there a park or maybe a college stadium that stands out to you of having the best beer options? You're like, you know what? I go there. It's fun to watch the games, but I go there for the beer.
Well, that certainly takes care. I can't include BYU or Pepperdine in those. They're both faith-based universities and don't serve beer. Yeah, I think the thing that I like the most is when I get to go, and you guys have been there, I'm sure. The last 2 years I've covered the Big 12 tournament at Globe Life Park or Globe Life Field, whatever it's called. And, that's a minor league park, or I mean, a major league park. So they have those beers there. And so that's the thing I've always enjoyed, to go there and at least once a day, just kick back, have a brew between games, or maybe early in one of the games I cover. And it's just a joy. So and the other part about it is I insist on doing, I've always called dibs on the Big 12 tournament when it's been at Global Life, because anywhere else that you're going to cover a tournament, it's going to be 90 plus degrees. And I'm a real heat wimp.
Or weather. You're getting rain delays.
Yeah. Or rain delays. That's right. And they finish at like 2 a.m. because of it. So that's why Globe Life, I will forever cover the Big 12 tournament as long as it's still in the Rangers.
Welcome to Globe Life Field. It's 72 degrees, controlled temperature.
Controlled temperature. Yep.
Send Ken
Absolutely.
to Hoover. He loves the SEC anyways.
Oh, I couldn't imagine going there. That would be misery, especially next year when they expand it to all 16 teams. One rain delay is going to put that whole tournament in just turmoil. But I digress. I love the Big 12 tournament being played in, and I will cover it every year as long as it's still in Globe Life Park.
So what's your favorite stadium? One in California or two on the West Coast?
Well, here's my favorite stadiums, and it's not for necessarily like Arkansas is a great atmosphere. LSU is a great atmosphere, obviously, but my favorite two places to catch a ball game are the ones I mentioned. Pepperdine, where you can kick back, you can get views of the ocean. It's usually pretty good baseball. They've kind of scuffled over the last few years. And BYU has a really, really nice stadium. I'm shocked at how good that stadium is. And the view of the Wasatch Mountains behind it is just impeccable. So those are two of my favorites. And the one that I will say you guys probably don't know about, I've been there like 4 different times, I think, and this is how much of a loser I am. I go to Hawaii to go to baseball games, not to go to the beach. Hawaii has a great fan base. And I've been there when there's been like 4,000 fans there. They fill the stadium. They got a really big stadium that they built, but it's kind of old, like from 1977. But Hawaii has a surprisingly devout fan base that goes to a lot of the games. They make a lot of noise and they know their baseball.
Are we going to get Hawaii hosting a regional this year?
Oh, I would love that. I told Rich Hill's the coach there now, and he was coach at San Diego. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, man, if you could just have one team that kicks ass so bad that the NCAA tournament committee can't not put you guys at a home regional, I would love to see that. I think that would be the greatest.
They had a great weekend against Ole Miss. I don't know how great that's looking after the way Ole Miss has looked in the midweek, but
that's true.
Still took care of business against them.
Yeah, I think the 2 wins that they had, they kind of routed Ole Miss. It wasn't close games, and the 2 times they lost, I want to say one of them was like a nip and tuck game. So yeah, I think that shows pretty well for Hawaii and for the rest of the Big West to kind of watch out for Hawaii this year.
Yeah, I think their Friday night game with Ole Miss ended at like 4:00 Central Time.
That's right.
In the morning.
Because I finished my article that night and I was watching on the game tracker to see how the game's going, and it ended up going into 13 innings. I was like, God, I gotta go to sleep. I'm too tired. So I didn't find out till the next morning that they actually lost. So I was kind of staying up for as late as I could to see if they were going to pull that one out.
Hawaii kind of reminds me of UTRGV. Their crowds, they also play like an old minor league stadium.
Yeah,
and they get almost not 4,000, but they get almost 4,000.
Do they really? I didn't know.
Yeah, I think they're like 3,500 they averaged last year.
That must be like one of those things where it's kind of the only game in town, I guess, kind of a thing, kind of like Hawaii, where that's why they get good crowds. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Old Pan American University. Huh. I'll be damned.
When you go to Hawaii, do you try to get D1 to expense it?
I've tried and they've said no. Luckily, I actually have friends that I go skiing with every year that live in Hawaii that I stay with. So it kind of helps me, with some of the expense report, I guess.
Do you ever meet up with Don Nelson, Coach Nelson, and play poker with him and Woody Harrelson?
I forgot he lives there, doesn't he? No, I haven't. Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. What a great coach he was too. That Don Nelson reference. Good for you, Ray. That's awesome. Thought he was out of your age range, but
no, man.
You know that and Happy Days, so you're old.
He crafted Dirk into the god that he is.
Oh,
and
yes.
I love Dirk Nowitzki. He's one of my favorite athletes ever.
I love that guy too. Yeah, good pull. I like that.
we were talking about your favorite stadiums to go to, and we've got a lot of comments from this Bella Fox, aka Elise, in the chat, and asking about if you enjoyed going to Rice's Beer Garden.
That's my friend Lilu. I love that chick. I know who you're talking about. She's one of my favorite baseball people in the world. And yes, tell her that it's been a few years because Rice, they started crapping the rug about 5-6 years ago under Wayne Graham is one of my favorites. Tanya, his wife, is a little firecracker who doesn't take any shit, and I love her too. But yes, I pine for the days to get back to Rice where they're good again. And I know they got Stanford coming in a couple of weeks. I could probably see that, I guess. But no, yes, I know who that is, and she's one of my favorite people in the world. Lilu, this one's for you.
All right, there you go. So before we get you out of here, we asked you about questions about TCU. Do you need to know anything about TCU? Are you coming to Fort Worth this weekend? What's your plan?
Okay, here's the deal. Here's where I did a good thing and then I screwed up at the same time. So I planned on flying into DFW on Saturday morning, which I will, but I didn't realize when I made my plans at the time, I didn't know Arkansas and Oregon State were going to play the Friday night game.
Yeah.
So I'm pissed at myself that I'm going to miss that rematch of the national championship from 2018. But yes, I will go to Globe Life. My plan is to hopefully go to one of the UCLA TCU games this week. If I don't make it, don't hold it against me, but I want to try to make it to a game there because A, I love going to Lupton Stadium, and B, it's going to be a good matchup. Ideally, I'd kind of like to see maybe the Sunday game there, so I'm going to try, and I'm going to spend the next 7 or 8 days in Texas and probably go down to Minute Maid Park and see the tournament down there for a couple of days where they have Texas, Vanderbilt, LSU, Houston, Louisiana, and
Texas State's in there.
Well, Texas State, yeah, which I'm a big fan of Coach Trout too. So that's kind of my game plan, is to just spend like a week in Texas, and I'll see how much I can expense to Kyle Peterson for all of this.
Well, we know how the Oregon State-Arkansas game is going to end. Arkansas is going to drop a pop fly in the late innings and allow Oregon State to come back.
You're a mean one, Ray. You're a mean one.
Only because it cost me glory. We do this.
He brings it up every time.
Every time Arkansas is mentioned, I will not let it go.
It kind of is. It kind of is the. Oh God, what was the guy's name for the Red Sox? Bill Buckner, kind of the Bill Buckner of college baseball in a way, because in fact, it was weird because just to get off track a little bit, during that play, when the ball popped up in the air, I had my camera ready to take a picture of the dog pile because Arkansas was going to win if they made that out. So my camera was pointed toward the Arkansas dugout the whole time. And next thing I know is I hear a giant ugh from the crowd, and I'm like, what happened? And I see that they dropped the ball. So I didn't even see the actual play itself until, the millions of replays that they have online that you can watch.
That's our Bill Buckner of the Lupton Drinking Club, is Ray, saying this nonstop every podcast.
It just cost me so much.
It
cost me glory and money.
As long as you didn't bet on it in Vegas. Did you bet on it in Vegas?
No. So every year we have one of our other hosts. His name's Jacob. He started this tournament pick'em, and we call it the Curry Cup after Matt Curry.
Mm-hmm.
And I had Arkansas to win it all, and the person I was going against, they had Oregon State, so I would have won the Curry Cup and a little bit of money that goes with it if Arkansas could have caught a routine pop-up.
Yep, right there in the Bermuda Triangle. They had 3 guys right there to catch the damn thing. That was unreal. And I still say, and that's why also, just getting back, Kyle, this is kind of why I picked Arkansas for real to win the national championship, although I hope Dallas Baptist does. I picked Arkansas because I just think one of these years they're going to do it. Dave Van Horn has built such a great program, or continue the great program from Norm to Brian. They got to be due eventually, right? I don't know. That was my thinking on that one.
Probably next year, because TCU is going to win it this year.
I won't be disappointed. I like every one of the coaches on that staff, so that would be cool to me.
Eric, we do have an update on the USC LMU game. It says David Bowen says they are losing right now. USC is to LMU 4-3 in the top of the 7th.
Top of the 7th, yep. actually, that's probably going on a mile from my house. I should go ahead and check it. Can we end this so I can go check out the last few innings of the game? I'm just going to run over there right now.
That's a perfect exit for us, Eric. This is your busy season. You're traveling all around. Welcome to Texas in a couple days, and we appreciate you being here. We'd love to. Obviously, it's not going to work out this time, but we'd love to share a beer at some time if you're going to come to Lupton Stadium. So when you get to Fort Worth, let's do that. Thank you again for your time. We enjoy reading your stuff on D1 Baseball. You are Eric Sorenson at Stitch_head.
I will say one more thing in saying goodbye to you guys. I don't know if you'll be able to read this, but
Frog ball, let's go.
There you go.
That's how we end this. We say
this one, right? Yeah, it's
we
not
end
there.
every
Right,
frog.
you got to curl it a little bit more. Yeah.
We end every podcast and we say go Frogs. We get a go Frogs there.
Go Frogs.
That's right. All
Put that down in print. Thanks, you guys, for having me on. This has been really freaking cool. If you guys want to do it again, I'll lower my appearance fee for you guys the next time.
Oh, appreciate it. We had to take it out of Martin's allowance.
Yes. Thank you, Martin. You're a team player.
You're a great interview.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Wait. So do I just get out?